training, which represent a way to bring mindfulness into every area of our lives. Rather than hard and fast rules, the mindfulness training offers us a framework to reflect on our actions, speech, and thinking so we can create more happiness for ourselves and for the world around us. Now, I need 5 volunteers to read each one of the mindfulness trainings. So, can I get some volunteers? Jessica, you can do reverence for life. Um, who else volunteered? David, true happiness. Let's see who else we have.
Olivia raised her hand.
Who?
There's someone named Olivia Simler who raised a hand.
So Olivia, you do true love. Deborah, loving speech and listening. And I need one more person.
I think Anne.
Anne. Thank you. The 5 mindfulness trainings represent the Buddhist vision for a global, spiritual, and ethic. They are a concrete expression of the Buddhist teachings on the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of right understanding and true love, leading to healing, transformation, and happiness for ourselves and for the world. To practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of interbeing or right view, which can remove all discrimination, intolerance, anger, fear, and despair. If we live according to the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are already on the path of a bodhisattva. Knowing we are on the path, we are not lost in confusion about our life in the present or in fears about the future. Andrea? Jessica, I'm sorry.
Are we doing bells on either side of each? No. Okay.
Yes, there'll be a bell when you complete your part.
Okay. Reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world.
This is the first of the mindfulness trainings, Reverence for Life. Have you had the opportunity to observe, study, and practice it in the last few weeks?
true happiness, aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. That true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change.
This is the second of the mindfulness trainings, True Happiness. Have you had the opportunity to observe, study, and practice it in the last few weeks?
True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without mutual consent, true love, and a deep, long term commitment. I resolve to find spiritual support for the integrity of my relationships from family members, friends, and Sangha with whom there is support and trust. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are interrelated, I am committed to learn appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and to cultivate the four basic elements of true love: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, for the greater happiness of myself and others. Recognizing the diversity of human experience, I am committed not to discriminate against any form of gender identity or sexual orientation. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future.
This is the third of the mindfulness trainings, True Love. Have you had the opportunity to observe, study, and practice in the last few months? Last few weeks.
Loving speech and deep listening, aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully, using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness.
This is the fourth of the mindfulness trainings, loving speech and deep listening. Have you had the opportunity to observe, study, and practice in the last few weeks?
Nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the four kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. I'm determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present world. I am determined not to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate interbeing and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth.
This is the fifth of the mindfulness trainings, nourishment and healing. Have you had the opportunity to observe, study, and practice in the last few weeks? That ends our recitation of the five mindfulness trainings. So, what I'd like to do is to break out, use breakout rooms so you can share and share based on your own experiences of the practice rather than abstract ideas or theoretical topics, and avoid giving advice even if it's asked for, and allow space after someone speaks. Enjoy two conscious breaths between listening to someone speak and bowing in to speak next. Now, what I suggested is that you talk about which of the mindfulness trainings is the most easy for you, which is the most difficult. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't talk about something else, but that's just a suggestion. And I will attempt to do breakout rooms. I don't know.
I can do it if you don't see the option.
I don't.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Did you just want me to, how many people would you like
1,
per
2,
room?
3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 13, 14. So what? 3, 4. What- Are you doing sign language and
Three breakout rooms?
with
Is
4
that
people?
it?
Three in each, no, three in each group. Don't they have that option, three in each group?
Let's see, I can assign automatically and I can create 3 or 4 breakout rooms. So if I create 4, maybe it's 5 then, because there's, how many are there? 12, 13. So 4. Uh, does that work?
Yeah, let's see.
All right, let's see how it goes.
And we're going to be in, that'll give everybody about 5 minutes, I think, each to talk.